Hello, my name is Jeffrey C. Ponferrada, and this is my self-identity autobiography. As stated in my introduction video, I describe myself as a first-generation Filipino American. Breaking each of those down, first generation meaning I am the oldest child of Philippine immigrants who came to the United States in the mid to late 70s. My father immigrated from Manila to San Francisco as a result of being petitioned by his mother, my grandmother. He was the youngest of three children to be petitioned by my grandmother, and he made that move in the mid 70s. My mother immigrated during the time of martial law in the Philippines. So, martial law enacted by one of the presidents. In the 70s in the Philippines. It was a time of unrest. It was a time of political instability and chaos. And so my mom, fortunately was offered a recruitment or by a recruitment agency to work as a nurse in specifically Chicago, Illinois at that time. So she made the move along with some classmates from her province in Carmona, Cavite to Chicago and began her work as a nurse there. Through that work, she was able to support the rest of her family that remained in the Philippines with the money that she was earning. On a whim, and after some coaxing by one of her close friends that she immigrated with, took a vacation to San Francisco, and there she met my dad. And so she basically picked up the rest of her things in Chicago, made the move to San Francisco to pursue a serious relationship with my father, and they ultimately got married and settled in the Bay Area. I am the oldest of two children. I have a younger sister, and from that point on, growing up with my parents and with my family, was introduced to what it meant to be a Filipino and specifically Filipino American, right? So from the language and the traditions and the heritage, my parents really introduced that intentionally to me and my sister, and cultivated a sense of pride for those things in both of us. I feel like it obviously, growing up and being born in America, I have to denote that as part of my cultural identity, that my experiences growing up here are vastly different from my cousins that are the same age as me in the Philippines, right? And the rest of my family that remains in the Philippines. As a result of being born here, obviously, was just also born into a certain level of privilege, and I'm cognizant of those things, right? And I'm aware that that also is a part of who I am. Thinking back to specific moments that I think contributed to solidifying my cultural identity, probably the first and foremost memory is of me in high school wanting to join a pickup game of basketball. I went to De La Salle High School, which is a Jesuit all-boys high school in Concord, California. At that time was still comprised predominantly of white students from fairly affluent communities of Danville and San Ramon, and so being, after school, hanging out in the gym, wanting to get in a basketball game and being told that I could not play because I was simply not white. So I think, to this day, it's something that resonates with me as probably my very first experience of that level of racism. As I continue to look back, I don't remember any other experiences to that extent or memories where that level of racism was that tangible. But continued with that in the back of my head, that yes, I was different than a lot of my classmates at that school, and would be discriminated against for that reason. ultimately, I graduated from that school, went to San Francisco State for my undergrad, and there I, for once, had through ethnic studies and Asian American studies, which I majored in, had professors that looked like me and that represented me. Never before in my educational career that I experienced that, and so I was fortunate enough to be there and in that space and learning from them. And even more fortunate that they used and they were comfortable with creating a space within their classrooms to um, bring me and my classmates' cultural identities into those spaces as a way to engage in the content. So whether it be our language or music or poetry or spoken word, whatever we were interested in, whatever made us unique and who we were, they encouraged that, right, as a way to delve into their course materials. And it is from that experience specifically that turned me on to wanting to be an educator myself. I had very strong mentors there at that school that continue to cultivate that level of cultural pride and cultural relevance for me, and thus I wanted to reciprocate that, with my own students. So made the move to Los Angeles after getting into UCLA's teacher education program. Got my single subject English credential, and I've been an employee of LAUSD for a total of 11 years now. Starting off, my first 8 years as an English teacher, and now as a restorative justice advisor in Koreatown. My culture and all aspects of my identity are still something that I am very proud of, and it's something that I consistently share with my students and my staff and my colleagues, because that's my lens, right? And I want to embody that pride. I want to exude that pride, and I want to embody, that cultural relevance, so that my students themselves and ultimately my colleagues also can feel comfortable in their own identities as well, right? And in that way, we're together cultivating a culture of acceptance, of diversity, and hopefully what I believe to be love, for each other and for those aspects of who we are.